What happens when a former royal sits down with one of television's most outspoken hosts, and the conversation takes an unexpected turn that nobody saw coming? Today we're diving into a moment that had viewers across America picking up their phones to call their friends. A conversation that started as a typical celebrity interview, but quickly became something much more intense. Meghan Markle appeared on The View for what was supposed to be a standard promotional appearance, but Joy Behar had other plans. What unfolded was a back and forth that became increasingly uncomfortable, with questions that pushed boundaries and responses that revealed more than anyone anticipated. By the time it was over, social media was exploding, and everyone was asking the same question: what exactly happened in those final moments? If you want to hear every word of this incredible exchange, make sure to hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below, because this story is about to get very interesting. Joy Behar leaned forward across the table, her signature knowing smile spreading across her face as she looked directly at Meghan. So Meghan, let's talk about what everyone's really thinking. You've been very vocal about your experiences with the royal family, but some people are saying you're playing the victim card a little too much. What's your response to that? Meghan shifted slightly in her chair, maintaining her composure but clearly caught off guard by the directness of the question. Well, Joy, I think it's interesting that when someone speaks their truth, especially a woman of color, they're immediately labeled as playing victim. I've simply shared my experiences. But come on, Joy interrupted, waving her hand dismissively. You married into one of the most privileged families in the world. You got the fairy tale wedding, the titles, the global platform. Some might say you're biting the hand that fed you. The other hosts exchanged glances, sensing the tension building. Whoopi tried to interject. Well, I think what Meghan is saying is... No, Joy cut her off, her voice rising slightly. I want to hear this. Meghan, you've made millions from interviews and deals talking about how hard your royal life was. Meanwhile, there are people struggling to pay rent. Don't you think that comes across as a little tone-deaf? Meghan's jaw tightened imperceptibly, but her voice remained measured. Joy, I think you're missing the point entirely. This was never about money or privilege. It was about basic human dignity and the right to protect my family. Protect your family? Joy scoffed. By airing your dirty laundry on international television? By writing tell-all books? That's protection? What would you have done? Meghan shot back, her composure beginning to crack. If your child's safety was threatened, if you were being systematically destroyed by tabloids, if your own family was contributing to false narratives about you? Joy leaned back, clearly enjoying the rising tension. I probably wouldn't have married into a family I knew was problematic in the first place. Did you really think it was going to be all tiaras and tea parties? That's incredibly naive, Meghan replied, her voice growing firmer. No one can predict how they'll be treated. No one can predict institutional racism or deliberate character assassination. Oh, here we go with the racism card again, Joy said, throwing her hands up theatrically. Every criticism becomes about race. Maybe, just maybe. Some people have legitimate concerns about your behavior that have nothing to do with your skin color. The studio fell silent except for the hum of cameras. Sarah Haynes tried to jump in. I think we should maybe. No, Meghan said sharply, holding up her hand. I want to address this. Joy, what you just said is exactly the problem. You're dismissing genuine experiences of discrimination by calling them cards that I'm playing. When I talk about the questions that were raised about my son's skin color before he was born, that's not a card, that's reality. Joy rolled her eyes. According to you and Harry, we only have your word for that. No one else has come forward to corroborate these supposed racist comments. So, you're calling me a liar? Meghan asked, her voice dangerously quiet. I'm calling you someone who has a very convenient memory when it comes to painting yourself as the victim, Joy replied without hesitation. The tension in the studio was now palpable. Camera operators adjusted their positions, sensing something significant was about to happen. Whoopi tried once more to redirect. Ladies, maybe we should take a different approach here. No, Whoopi, Meghan said, her eyes never leaving Joy's face. I think Joy has something she wants to say. Please, continue. Joy's smile widened, sensing an opportunity to push further. Well, since you asked, I think you and Harry are professional victims. I think you left the royal family not because of racism or media pressure, but because you couldn't handle not being the center of attention. Kate was getting more coverage, William was more popular, and you couldn't stand being second fiddle. That's completely. I'm not finished. Joy interrupted, holding up her hand. And I think this whole victim narrative is just a way to monetize your grievances. You've turned your complaints into a multi-million-dollar industry. Megan stared at Joy for a long moment, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. When she spoke, her voice was controlled but cold. Joy, I came here today as a courtesy, to have what I thought would be a respectful conversation. But what you're doing right now is exactly what I've been talking about. You're twisting my words, dismissing my experiences, and making assumptions about my motivations that are completely false. Am I, though? Joy pressed. Because from where I'm sitting it looks like someone who's gotten very comfortable playing the victim for profit. Megan's eyes flashed with something dangerous as she processed Joy's words. The other hosts sat frozen, unsure whether to intervene or let this train wreck continue. When Megan finally spoke, her voice was ice cold. Joy, I need you to listen very carefully to what I'm about to say. You have crossed a line that you cannot uncross. You are sitting here, on national television, calling a woman who has experienced documented harassment, threats against her child, and systematic character assassination, a professional victim. Do you understand what you just did? Joy, either oblivious to the gravity of the moment or determined to push further, shrugged casually. I called it like I see it. You've made a career out of complaining about your royal in-laws while cashing checks from Netflix and book publishers, if the shoe fits. The shoe fits? Megan repeated, her voice rising for the first time. Joy, do you know what it's like to have photographers chase your 3-year-old son to try to get pictures? Do you know what it's like to receive death threats because tabloids publish lies about you daily? Oh, please. Joy waved her hand dismissively. Celebrities deal with paparazzi all the time. It comes with the territory. You wanted the fame. You got it. Sunny Hostin finally found her voice. Joy, maybe we should. No, Sunny. Megan cut her off, her attention laser focused on Joy. Let her finish. I want everyone to hear exactly what she thinks about women who speak up about abuse. Joy's eyebrows shot up. Abuse? Now you're calling it abuse? What abuse? Being criticized by the media? Having family drama? Welcome to being human, Megan. What would you call it when an institution refuses to correct false stories about you while simultaneously briefing against you behind the scenes? Megan asked, her voice getting stronger. What would you call it when they deny your child the same security protection they give to other royal children? I'd call it family politics. Joy shot back. Every family has drama. Your drama just happens to be more public and more profitable for you. The audience was completely silent now, some people looking uncomfortable, others leaning forward in anticipation. Whoopi made another attempt to redirect. You know what? I think we should talk about your current projects. Actually, Whoopi, Megan said, never taking her eyes off Joy. I think this conversation is exactly what people need to hear. Joy, since you seem to have all the answers, tell me what I should have done differently. When the palace refused to protect me and my family, what was my alternative? Joy leaned back in her chair with a smug expression. You could have sucked it up like every other royal wife before you. You could have done your duty instead of running away the first time things got difficult. Sucked it up, Megan repeated slowly. So when they allowed tabloids to publish stories calling my unborn child names, I should have just sucked it up? Yes, Joy said without hesitation. Because that's what you signed up for when you married a prince. You knew what you were getting into. Megan stared at her for a long moment, then let out a short, bitter laugh. You know what, Joy? You're absolutely right about one thing. I did know what I was getting into. I knew I was marrying into a family with a complicated history with race. I knew the media would be intense. What I didn't know was that I'd be sitting across from someone like you, someone who would dismiss genuine concerns about safety and well-being as playing victim. Because that's exactly what you're doing, Joy fired back. You're sitting here trying to make me the villain for asking tough questions. This is what journalists do, Megan. We don't just throw you softball questions because you used to be a princess. Tough questions? Megan's voice was incredulous. Joy, You haven't asked me a single question about my work, my charitable efforts, my upcoming projects. You've spent this entire segment attacking my character and dismissing my experiences. That's not journalism, that's bullying. Joy's face flushed red. Bullying? I'm bullying you? You came on this show knowing exactly what kind of host I am. If you wanted a puff-piece interview, you should have gone to a different show. You're right, Megan said, standing up slowly from her chair. I absolutely should have gone to a different show. I should have gone somewhere where they treat guests with basic human decency. The studio erupted in murmurs as Megan reached for her purse. Joy, realizing she might have pushed too far, tried to backtrack. Wait, sit down. We're not finished here. Oh, we're absolutely finished. Megan replied, her voice deadly calm as she unclipped her microphone. Joy, in the few minutes I've been sitting here, you've called me a liar, a professional victim, ungrateful, and a bully. You've dismissed racism as playing cards, trivialized threats against my child, and suggested I should have just accepted abuse because I married into royalty. I never said. You said exactly that, Megan cut her off. And frankly, I'm done pretending that behavior like this is acceptable just because we're on television. Alyssa Farah Griffin spoke up desperately. Megan, please sit back down, let's talk about this. Megan shook her head. Alyssa, I appreciate you trying, but there's nothing to talk about. Joy has made her position very clear, and I've made mine clear. Some conversations aren't worth having. Joy, perhaps sensing the optics of the situation, tried one last time. Look, Megan, if you can't handle a little pushback, maybe public life isn't for you. That final comment from Joy was the breaking point. Megan stopped dead in her tracks, turned around slowly, and walked back toward the table. For a moment, everyone thought she was going to sit back down, but instead, she placed both hands on the table and leaned forward, looking Joy directly in the eyes. You know what, Joy? You just proved my point better than I ever could. A woman stands up for herself, shares her truth, and your response is that maybe public life isn't for her. Maybe she can't handle pushback. Do you hear yourself? Do you understand what you're saying? Joy, clearly flustered by Megan's direct approach, tried to maintain her composure. I'm saying that if you choose to live in the public eye, you need to accept that people are going to have opinions about your choices. Having opinions is one thing, Megan replied, her voice controlled but fierce. Systematically dismissing someone's experiences, calling them a liar, and suggesting they should have just accepted mistreatment is something else entirely. And the fact that you don't see the difference is exactly the problem. Whoopi tried once more. Ladies, I think we need to take a breath here. No, Whoopi, Megan said, still staring at Joy. I want to finish this. Joy, you asked me what I should have done differently. Let me ask you something. If your daughter came to you and said her in-laws were allowing the media to attack her, that they were refusing to protect her children, that she was getting death threats daily, what would you tell her to do? Joy shifted uncomfortably. That's completely different. How is it different? Megan pressed. Because she's not famous? Because she didn't marry into royalty? So fame means you forfeit your right to safety and dignity? You chose that life, Joy insisted, but her voice was less confident now. I chose to marry someone I love. Megan corrected. I didn't choose to be systematically destroyed by tabloids, while my husband's family stood by and watched. I didn't choose to have my newborn son's security threatened. I didn't choose to be called names and have lies spread about me daily. Sarah Haynes attempted to interject. I think what Joy might be trying to say is, Sarah, please don't make excuses for her. Megan said without taking her eyes off Joy. Let her speak for herself. Joy, do you believe that because someone is famous, they deserve to be mistreated? Joy was clearly struggling now. I believe that when you enter public life, especially at that level, you know there are going to be challenges. That's not what I asked you, Megan interrupted. I asked if you believe famous people deserve to be mistreated. It's a simple yes or no question. The silence stretched on for what felt like an eternity. Joy opened her mouth several times, but no words came out. Finally, she said, I think you're twisting my words. I'm asking you to clarify your words, Megan replied, Because what you've been saying for the past 20 minutes is that I should have just accepted abuse because I married a prince. You've dismissed racism as playing cards, you've called my experiences lies, and you've suggested that speaking up about mistreatment makes me a professional victim. So I'm asking you directly, do you stand by those statements? Joy looked around the table at her co-hosts, clearly hoping for support, but found only uncomfortable expressions. Look, Megan, I think you're being overly sensitive. Overly sensitive, Megan repeated, straightening up. There it is. The classic dismissal. When a woman, especially a woman of color, speaks up about mistreatment, she's being overly sensitive. When she shares her truth, she's playing victim. When she protects her family, she's ungrateful. Joy, you have just demonstrated every single thing I've been talking about. I am not racist, Joy said defensively, her voice rising. I didn't call you racist, Megan replied calmly. But your dismissal of my experiences, your refusal to acknowledge that racism played a role in how I was treated, and your insistence that I should have just accepted it all speaks for itself. Sunny Hostin finally spoke up. Joy, I think maybe you should apologize. Apologize for what? Joy snapped. For asking tough questions? For not treating her like she's above criticism? No, Megan said, picking up her purse again. Apologize for spending an entire segment attacking a guest instead of interviewing them. Apologize for dismissing serious concerns about safety and racism. Apologize for suggesting that fame means someone deserves to be mistreated. Joy crossed her arms defiantly. I'm not apologizing for doing my job. Your job? Megan asked, incredulous. Your job is to interview guests, not to attack them. Your job is to ask questions, not to dismiss their answers before you've even heard them. Your job is to facilitate conversation, not to bully people into defending their basic human dignity. The tension in the studio was now unbearable. Camera operators were getting shots of audience members looking shocked and uncomfortable. Some people were whispering to each other. Others were shaking their heads. Joy, perhaps realizing she was losing the room, tried a different approach. Look, Megan, I'm sorry if you feel attacked, but I was just trying to get to the truth. The truth? Megan laughed bitterly. Joy, you've spent this entire time telling me what my truth is, instead of listening to what I'm actually saying. You've decided I'm a liar, a victim player, and ungrateful, and nothing I could say would change your mind, because you made up your mind before I even sat down. That's not true, Joy protested weakly. Isn't it? Megan challenged. Tell me one thing I've said today that you've actually listened to without immediately dismissing or twisting it. Joy opened her mouth, but no words came out. The silence was deafening. That's what I thought, Megan said quietly. Joy, I came here today hoping to have a meaningful conversation about important issues. Instead, I've been subjected to 25 minutes of character assassination, disguised as journalism. I've been called a liar, dismissed, and told I should have just accepted abuse. And when I defend myself, I'm told I'm being overly sensitive. She paused, looking around the table at the other hosts. To Whoopi, Sarah, Sunny, and Alyssa, I appreciate your attempts to redirect this conversation. You tried to maintain some level of professionalism, and I respect that. Then she turned back to Joy. But to you, Joy, I want you to think about what happened here today. I want you to think about how you treated a guest who came here in good faith. I want you to think about the message you're sending to women who might be watching. Women who might be afraid to speak up about their own experiences because they're afraid of being treated the way you've treated me. Joy finally found her voice. You're being dramatic. And there it is again, Megan said, shaking her head. Dismissal, minimization, gaslighting. Joy, this conversation is exactly why women don't speak up. This is exactly why victims stay silent. Because they know that when they do speak up, they'll be met with exactly this kind of response. She turned to leave, then stopped and faced the camera directly. To anyone watching who has ever been told they're being too sensitive, or that they're playing victim, or that they should just accept mistreatment because of their circumstances, I want you to know that your experiences matter. Your truth matters. And you don't have to accept abuse from anyone, regardless of how they try to justify it. Joy made one last desperate attempt. Megan, you're twisting this whole thing. Megan turned back to her one final time. Joy, the only thing I'm twisting is the doorknob on my way out. This interview is over. With that, she walked toward the exit, her heels clicking on the studio floor. The camera followed her as she reached the door, turned back briefly to look at the stunned faces around the table, and then walked out, leaving behind a studio full of shocked silence. Joy sat there, mouth agape, clearly realizing she had just created a television moment that would be talked about for years to come. The other hosts looked at each other uncertainly, unsure how to proceed. Finally, Whoopi cleared her throat and looked directly into the camera. Well, that was unexpected. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we'll discuss what just happened. But everyone knew that no amount of discussion could undo what had just unfolded on live television. And that's exactly how one of the most explosive interviews in recent television history came to an end, with a former royal walking away from one of daytime TV's biggest stages, leaving behind a conversation that would spark debates for months to come. What did you think about how this whole situation played out? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more incredible stories like this one.